Organized crime is not welcome in Atlantic City, and I warn them again, keep your filthy hands out of Atlantic City.
Atlantic City, New Jersey, on a June weekend. For the first 50 years of this century, Atlantic City was America's favorite playground, the queen of resorts. But by the 1950s, the queen was dying. Holidaymakers were flying to Florida and the Caribbean. Then in 1976, legalized gambling came to Atlantic City and everything changed.
Gentlemen, Miss Julie Miller.
When the first casinos opened, the missing millions flocked back to Atlantic City's famous boardwalk. For the first time in the eastern United States, there was somewhere people could gamble without breaking the law. In 1983, Atlantic City's casinos took $2 billion. In less than 6 years, Atlantic City has overtaken the town which likes to think of itself as the gambling capital of the world, Las Vegas. "50 years of legal gambling has practically built Las Vegas and the state of Nevada. Without gambling, Nevada would be broke. It's the only game in town." Almost everywhere else in America, gambling is a crime. Most states fear that legalized gambling only brings more organized crime, and that where there's a casino, the mafia is bound to follow. Nevada likes to think that it's kept its casinos clean, that behind the glitter and glamour of the Strip and downtown Las Vegas, there lurks only more glitter and glamour. But the connections between Nevada gambling and organized crime start a world away from the bright lights of Las Vegas. The mean streets of America's inner cities are where organized crime has controlled illegal gambling for more than 50 years. Among the poor, the most popular game is numbers or policy, a kind of daily lottery.
Gambling is a way of life, a way of survival. You know, you figure when jobs are down and you just can't make a living. A lot of people, you know, think welfare is not going to give them enough money to really survive. So the next best thing is numbers. If you don't want to go out and rob anybody, stick a gun in their face, then you play the numbers. And you hope and pray that your number is going to come out one day that week.
Nothing's changed in the numbers or policy game since the 1900s.
What you want?
Give me 500, will you?
On 500?
309.
309.
788.
788.
591.
591. Hello.
For a few cents or $1 a day, you choose any three-figure number. The chances of winning are 1,000 to 1 against. The profits for the numbers operators are colossal, which is why notorious white gangsters muscled in on Harlem numbers in the 1930s.
One of the first investigations that I was on was the investigation of racketeering in the numbers racket, the so-called policy racket. When Prohibition came to an end, and was beginning to come to an end in 33 and 34, Dutch Schultz, Arthur Flegenheimer, also known as Dutch Schultz, who had been the kingpin in the liquor business, had to seek other sources of income. And what they decided to take over was the policy racket. So Dutch Schultz got hold of all of the policy people in Black Harlem, the 5 or 6 major bankers, and said, we're now your partners. And we're going to organize it. And we're going to get political connection for you. We're going to get police connection for you. After all, they had been having that protection during Prohibition. They had the business organization to do it.
Dutch Schultz was soon taking $20 million a year from the numbers racket in Harlem. He didn't live long enough to enjoy the profits. Schultz was murdered by mafia hitmen in a restaurant in Newark, New Jersey in 1935. The mafia has controlled the numbers racket ever since. Today, people place their numbers bets in little neighborhood stores. The betting shops aren't usually run directly by the mafia crime families, but the shops pay the mafia for arranging layoff money and police protection.
Best of my knowledge, I have always known numbermen to be the higher echelon. As I was a kid, was told mafioso, as we call it in the black neighborhood, be the mafia. They would have the final say-so on what the number was to come out.
But I mean, there are so many black people betting. Why are they betting on a white man's racket?
Well, they're betting on the white man's racket because he's got the big buck to pay off.
Ohio, 1982. Local police are raiding a numbers racket, which takes $5,000 a day, $1.5 million a year. Good business in a small town during a recession. Criminals in America are said to make $12 billion from illegal betting every year. Apart from making fortunes out of the numbers racket and bets on all kinds of sports, mobsters also make millions by running illegal card games.
All right, each night I would go to a set game. The locations on these games never moved. They are not roving games. These are house games. All right, they are protected by the police in all the areas. They are also organized by organized crime or mafia, whatever word you want to use. They are not independently run games. I would start out with maybe $500 or $600, and I was known as a sitter. I was good for the house because I started the game and I finished the game, whether the game lasted 2 hours or whether the game lasted 2 days. So I was very welcome at all these games because they knew I was a sitter. Myself individually, playing cards to me was like getting laid, excuse my term, but it was how I got off. You know, I enjoyed it. I didn't mind losing the money because I never won. In 18 months' time, I must have lost about $250,000. I used to play poker 5 nights a week, and in a stretch of 18 months during 1970 and 71, I won 2 nights out of all the nights that I played cards. And the only reason why I won is because the games broke early. There's usually a girl there for the guys if they want to take a break and go upstairs and get their rocks off. They also supply liquor, food, cigarettes, what's ever needed. If you want drugs, they provide them too. You know, whatever it takes.
Jimmy Napoli, the Mr. Big of illegal gambling in New York. The police say he's a captain in the Genovese crime family. In 1976, Napoli was jailed for controlling a $100 million numbers empire.
Jimmy Napoli, you know, and everybody knows him as Jimmy Knapp. Jimmy Knapp has been doing for all the groups, all 5 families. He is the guy that is their super banker. He's their main money guy. He takes care of the numbers. He takes care of the sports betting. Takes care of a lot of the service on the line and things like that. He is their super banker. He makes money and earns for all the crews.
The mafia murders to keep control of illegal gambling. To people who bet $1 a day, gambling's a harmless pastime. But to the men who make millions from organized crime's oldest racket, it's a matter of life and death.
Patty Macarola, involved in his gambling operation, partners with Napoli. He was taken down with Napoli. Trunk of a car at the Brooklyn-Queens Expressway with some lead in his head that didn't belong there. DeLeo, right? Trunk of a car at Kennedy Airport. Carmine Consalvo. He had his laundry in the washing machine at the Fort Lee Towers when he took the dive out the 16-story window in his shorts. His laundry was still in the machine. 2 weeks later, his brother took a dive. He fell out a window on top of a firehouse out of an abandoned tenement building over on this side of the river. Jiggs Furlano and Ruby Stein were 2 more guys that were hooked up with him in his activities and everything else. One ends up in the river with a body in the river, head in a vacant lot. The other guy, he just dies, you know. He dies real strange. Arthur Milgram was a guy that was involved with the lotteries and the vending, and he was involved with J.J. Frankel. Frankel just took a dive less than a month ago out a window, and maybe he did take a dive. I don't know. Maybe he had problems. Milgram, if he committed suicide with the shotgun the way he got it, it's very strange, in the back of the head, you know. All you got to do is look at some of the bodies around this gambling activity.
In this country, gambling is almost a birthright of gangsters. Since I was old enough to remember, the same gangsters that today operate the big casinos were operating crap games and poker games in Mulberry Street and Houston Street in New York City. They have the expertise. There's no one in this country that knows gambling better than organized crime.
For more than 50 years, these 4 men controlled most of America's illegal gambling. Lucky Luciano, most notorious of all mafia bosses. Jailed in 1936, deported to Italy in 1946. In Naples, he led a glamorous social life, but still operated in exile as the American mafia's boss of bosses. Joe Adonis, a member of Luciano's crime family, he ran gambling clubs and controlled bookmaking at the racetracks. He also faced deportation.
Joe, you've been free on bail now, immigration authorities.
Yeah.
How do you feel?
Fine.
Do you think the immigration authorities will deport you to Italy?
I do not know.
Thank you very much, Joe Adonis.
Rather than be deported, Adonis left America in 1956 to live in Milan on gambling profits sent from New York. Frank Costello, he ran Luciano's crime family while the boss was in jail and exile. In 1951, Costello was the star of the Senate hearings on organized crime.
When you signed or had someone sign your naturalization papers, what did you promise to do as a citizen of the United States?
Well, I promised to obey.
Obey what?
The Constitution.
And the laws?
That's right.
Right. Have you always upheld the Constitution and the laws of your state and nation?
I believe I have.
Bearing in mind all that you've gained and received in wealth, what have you ever done for your country as a good citizen?
Paid my tax.
Meyer Lansky, not an Italian, but a Jew. A boyhood friend of Luciano's who became the financial brains behind the mafia and its gambling overlord.
How is your health?
Don't worry about it, young fella. I have lived my life, so don't worry about it.
Lansky lived the most extraordinary life of all the bosses of organized crime. Born in Russia, he became a bootleg king during Prohibition. The boss of bosses, Lucky Luciano, looked on Meyer Lansky as his most trusted advisor. By 1932, Lansky was so important to the mafia that he attended the summit meeting of the nation's crime bosses in Chicago. Lansky was a killer who worked with another young killer, Ben Bugsy Siegel. In the 1920s, Siegel and Lansky ran the gang which grew into Murder Incorporated, the underworld's assassination squad. Later, Bugsy Siegel went west and discovered Las Vegas. In the 1930s, Las Vegas was just a sleepy town in the Nevada desert. The state of Nevada was so poor, it decided to legalize gambling and make money out of taxing it. But gambling in Las Vegas only took off in 1946, when Bugsy Siegel bought a piece of desert 5 miles out of town and built the Flamingo Casino.
Well, if you didn't know his background, you would think that he was a character actor in the movies. He was a very handsome man. Wasn't too well-spoken because, you know, he used a lot of epithets. But there isn't anybody in the movie world that he didn't know. In fact, when the Flamingo opened, practically every top star came in for the opening. Tremendous, tremendous opening. Fabled names. They all responded to his invitation to come here. And he knew them all.
Siegel built the Flamingo on mob money sent by Lansky and Luciano. He overspent by millions. They thought he was stealing. The former hitman was lining himself up to be hit.
I don't know how many hundreds of thousands he went over the estimate of what he was supposed to spend. He got in an argument with somebody on the phone, and he used some very, you know, he was a hot-tempered guy. And he was talking, I think, to Meyer. And he told him, the hell with him, you know. And he just used 4-letter words, and just got in an argument with him, and he hung up the phone on him. Then 5 or 6 months later, they killed him.
And you think that the old boyhood friendship with Lansky would have meant nothing?
Oh, hell no. No. When they order a killing, what's that got to do with it? They just killed Meyer Lansky's stepson here, you know, not so long ago. Did you know that? Huh? So what the hell, what's that got to do with Meyer? You know, you gotta go regardless who you are. You go, Jackson. That's it.
In June 1947, Siegel, the man who made Las Vegas, was shot dead in Beverly Hills. No one was ever charged with his murder. Meyer Lansky immediately put more reliable men into Las Vegas to watch over the mob's investments. Lansky masterminded the mafia's gambling operations for 50 years. When he died in 1983, he was worth hundreds of millions of dollars, invested all over the world. In 1949, another team of organized crime figures moved into Las Vegas, buying Wilbur Clark's Desert Inn. They had been running illegal casinos in Cleveland and were led by one of Prohibition's most notorious bootleggers, Mo Dalitz. Dalitz is still identified as an organized crime figure in other states. Yet in Nevada, he's a most honored citizen, showered with awards. Top politicians value his financial backing. 40 years ago, Dalitz shrewdly paid taxes on his illegal gambling earnings and invested in legitimate business. Today, Mo Dalitz is hailed as Mr. Las Vegas, a far cry from the days of bootleg booze and illegal casinos.
Well, see, that's how these Jews got big. I'm going to take the Cleveland family, for instance. They had the Jews, these Jews like Mo Dalitz, Sammy Tucker, Morris Kleinman, the ones that owned the Desert Inn. They had 2 or 3 gambling houses in Cleveland, right? Well, maybe they'd declare $1 million at the end of the year, or whatever. Well, you know, coming into 7, 8, 10 years, if you wanted to invest 5, 10 million in something, you could show that you made that kind of money in the past. So that's how they got successful. I think it was in 1940 or 41, they bought the Beverly Club in Kentucky. Well, they showed money. They had money to show it. The Italians couldn't do it. You give an Italian $1 million, he puts it under the cellar. Oh, how can he invest $500,000? Where did you get the money? Do you understand? So that's how these Jews got made money, because they could show money. And the more money that they made, the more that they declared, the more that they could invest. See, that's where the Italians made a mistake. They should have done it themselves.
It's 50 years since Moe Dalitz somehow survived Cleveland's murderous bootleg wars. In 1950, the Senate named him as a top member of organized crime. Dalitz still refuses to talk about his criminal past.
What do you say to those people and those allegations after all these years?
This interview was not supposed to touch on personalities or personal things. So I must ask you to forgive me for not answering you.
Fair enough.
Every federal agency has been in here. They've had extra surveillance on this man. And he's never been arrested. He's never been charged with a crime. He was an officer in the United States Army. So all you can judge a man is by his record, not by what the newspapers say or by what people, books say. They surmise, they use inferences and innuendos and rumors. But you'd think if this man is supposed to be the godfather, so to speak, of Las Vegas, they'd have had him by this time. So instead, I would call him the grandfather of Las Vegas because of all the contributions he has made here.
In 1976, Moe Dalitz was named Las Vegas's Man of the Year. It was the final recognition that, at least here in Nevada, his criminal career had been forgiven. On this occasion, it was his deafness which stopped any questions about his past.
How do you feel about your award, sir? It's a great honor.
I'm very excited, and I'm very flattered. And I want to thank everybody here for coming.
Mr. Dalitz, one more question. You've been so involved with gaming in the past.
I don't hear you. There's too much noise.
So much noise, he can't hear you.
All right.
Sorry. Thank you very
All
much.
right.
Okay, good.
Moe Dalitz is one of my dear friends and a man that I've known for so many thousand years, and I wouldn't travel this far. I traveled all the way back from the East just to be here to help honor this man. And I've known him ever since I was a young fellow in Cleveland, and he was on his retirement trip at that time. Now, he's a beautiful guy, and he's done some marvelous things, and we go back to all the big shows that we did at the Desert Inn for the Cancer Fund, and it's a great tribute to him. Just this crowd, you know.
Las Vegas has its own strange aristocracy. Many people in gambling here have criminal backgrounds elsewhere, but that's forgiven. Money is what matters.
One of the first responses I had to coming to Nevada was whether this was really part of the United States. In most cities, the aristocracy of a community, although economics are an important part of social status, you will not see people who have criminal records or who are associated with organized crime mingling with the other people of high status in a community. You go to a function in Las Vegas, and somehow or other it all mixes together. And it's a very interesting phenomenon that I've observed no place else in the country.
For the Mafia, Las Vegas is an open city. Members of all America's crime families operate in this town. It's a good place to run to from the police. When a Mafia burglary in Chicago went wrong and ended in murder, Jerry DeNono came to Vegas until things cooled down.
So I just wanted to get out of town until the heat came off. So I told Tony DeJohn and Jay, I'm going to split. I have a little money. I'm going to go to Vegas for a while. And I just split and went there. I went to play golf and met up with another crew there. And then I met a girl there. It was a cocktail waitress. And went crazy over her like a fool and ended up marrying her. And Tony DeJohn came from Chicago to Vegas to see me. I'll never forget, it was at the Union Plaza. I'm sitting there, I didn't get married yet. And he said to me, you got to come back to Chicago. Joe wants you to come back. I says, I'd rather stay here for a while. I said, give me 6 months a year here. I says, I found somebody I really care for. And I was pussy whipped. I mean, I'm going to say it the way it is. My nose was open. I was in love with the illusion of the cocktail waitress and the long legs and the long blonde hair. And it was just a fantasy, okay? The lights and the whole bit.
Las Vegas casinos are allowed to comp big-spending gamblers. They give free hotel rooms, food and drink to keep these high rollers happy while they lose fortunes at the tables.
All bets down.
Jerry Denono was not a gambler, but he was comped and shown favors because he belonged to the Chicago crime family.
When I came from Chicago to Las Vegas, because of the people that I was around and associated with and being seen with, the same people that saw me later by myself treated me with a different type of respect. I was getting comped at Stardust, comped at any place that was associated with Chicago mob. I was treated much differently. In other words, I could go get a room comped, and surprisingly to myself, because of the association with Caesar DeVarco and Tony DeJohn and these sorts of people, your reputation runs in front of you and you haven't said a word. And cocktail waitresses, bartenders, captains in the restaurants treated you as if you were the closest thing to Al Capone's cousin.
The Chicago outfit is the strongest mafia family operating in Las Vegas, but all the crime families have a piece of Nevada gambling. What does the state do to keep them out?
We're going to talk to you today about the legislation that was passed in the last session. And the first area that I'm going to discuss are the changes in the taxes and fees. I'm going to talk about it briefly.
Patty Becker of the Nevada Gaming Control Board addresses casino managers about the latest changes in gambling law. For the first 24 years of legal gambling in Las Vegas, no one running a casino was ever investigated. But in 1955, the Gaming Board was set up to regulate the industry. Nowadays, anyone who wants a key position in a casino is investigated to find out if they have any connections with organized crime. In 1981, the singer Frank Sinatra sought a license to become entertainment consultant to Caesar's Palace Hotel, the most famous of all Las Vegas casinos. Public interest was so great that local television stations covered the hearings. Sinatra faced questions about his alleged friendship over the years with notorious mobsters from New York and Chicago.
Miss Sinatra, would you raise your hand to be sworn, please?
I solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give me is not offending.
Sinatra had to answer questions about his relationship with Sam Giancana. Giancana, once a gunman for Al Capone, became boss of the Chicago crime family and its gambling rackets in 1959. He loved beautiful women, like the singer Phyllis McGuire. Giancana was also a friend of Frank Sinatra's. The Gaming Commission wanted to know about an incident in 1962 when Giancana was staying at Frank Sinatra's casino.
I had a telephone call at about 1 o'clock in the morning, and I was home in Los Angeles from Eddie King, who was one of our employees. And he said to me, Giancana's here visiting his lady, and we just broke up a hell of a fight in the bungalow. And at that point is when I said to him, separately from Mr. Ruden's statement, I said to him, get him off the property. Just get rid of him.
That's good testimony. Did you know that, or was the reason you said that, the knowledge that this guy wasn't undesirable and could be getting you into trouble?
Of course.
Giancana was welcome at Frank Sinatra's show business parties, and at one of these he met Judith Exner. Judith Exner had been the lover of Sinatra. She would become the lover of President Kennedy and Sam Giancana. She met them both through Frank Sinatra.
Frank had gotten his group together in the early 60s and put a show on in Las Vegas with Dean Martin, Peter Lawford, Joey Bishop, Sammy Davis, and Frank. And they were making a picture there at the time, Ocean's 11. Well, the show was such a success that they took the show to Florida. When they went down there, I had been in New York, and I went down. I was invited to attend a party that they were going to have, and I wanted to see the show, and I went down with some friends of mine. It was at this party for the closing night. Their probably were 500 people there, but I was introduced to Sam Giancana by Frank Sinatra that night. Sam had known Frank for many, many years.
Mr. Louis Pasella?
Yes, very well.
Would you describe him as a good friend?
That's right.
Did he ever discuss with you appearing at the Westchester Theater?
Yes, he was the first man to invite me to perform at the theater. And I asked him some questions about what it seated, what type of building it was. Was it in the round, or was it on stage, and so on and so forth. And he explained it to me, and I said, well, we'll see what we can do about it. And I think in subsequent months, we found the calendar to be open, and then I think Mr. Rudin took charge and made the deal.
Is he the type of gentleman, or did he have a type of background that one might be aware of? With
Well,
the
I know
type
what
of
you're
friendship
saying,
you had?
I know what you're saying, Mr. Chairman, but I can't attest to that because I've never been present if he had any form of activity. I've never been present. He had a restaurant in New York, and I visited very often. I liked it. It was good food, and I became fond of him, and that was the extent of my friendship with him.
Okay. And you were aware, undoubtedly, that at some point in that Westchester incident, he was convicted of...
Yes, I'm well aware of
it. Not reporting some of the income that he
I'm
received.
well aware of it.
Sinatra got there through Louis Dones. Louis Dones went to the Westchester Theater, says, look, I can get you Sinatra, but I got to get a piece of the proposition. So they went along with it. So Sinatra, when he got there, Louis Dones used to run it. Everything. He got a piece of the scalping. He got a piece of the T-shirts. He got a piece of everything. See, Louis Dones is a made guy with the Genovese family. Now, Louis Dones went to the grand jury and refused to talk about Sinatra. And he did like 14 months for it. So, you know, there's something he could say and he don't want to say.
This photograph was taken backstage at the Westchester Theater in 1976, after Sinatra's performance. Sinatra is surrounded by leaders of the mafia, including Carlo Gambino, the most powerful crime boss in America, his underboss, Paul Castellano, and Los Angeles boss, Jimmy the Weasel Fratiano.
I was asked by one of the members of the theater who he was. Doesn't come to me. I don't think it's that important. He told me that Mr. Gambino had arrived with his granddaughter, whose name, perchance, happened to be Sinatra. And he said they would like to take a picture. And I said, fine. They came in, and I took a picture of the little girl. And before I realized what happened, there were approximately 8 or 9 men standing around me. That is the whole incident that took place.
Did you have any acquaintance with Mr. Gambino prior to that? Had you ever met him?
No, I never did. Not before nor after that.
Okay. Did you have any information about any of the people that were in that photograph with you? Did you know any of them by sight?
Well, Mr. Marsden, I think, was in the picture, whom I knew, because he was one of the owners of the club, and I knew him. And I later found out that I was introduced to somebody named Jimmy, and I later found out it was this Fink the Weasel, so I didn't know him at the time.
Jimmy Fratiano.
Yeah.
Subsequently, did you have an opportunity, after this picture received some degree of notoriety, to learn what the background was of some of those people?
No.
That you were there?
No.
As of today, you do not know what some of the background...
I didn't even know their names, let alone their backgrounds. I didn't even know most of the names.
I mean, subsequent to that, in the last little while.
No. No, I haven't. Nobody's asked me about it, and nobody's... I haven't discussed it with anybody.
Well, certainly all of the people in that picture, safe and accepting yourself, and it is quite a who's who of what's what, I guess, in the area of organized crime.
I wish that we didn't have to discuss Mr. Fradiano because he's a confessed murderer, a perjurer, and I would rather not discuss him involved with my own life.
Well, Mr. Sinatra,
that's a fair enough question.
Yes, unfortunately, I can appreciate what you're saying, but it is in the public record, and Mr. Fradiano has received a great deal of acclaim as a very creditable witness.
He made a statement that he was going to take a picture with somebody's niece. This is the last picture we took in Westchester, and he says all of a sudden 8 men were around him. Well, that's a lot of baloney. He wanted to take a picture with Gambino, and he offered Gambino to come in the back. He wanted to meet him. And he goes to the gaming board, and, you know, he just lied about these things, eh?
Can he possibly claim he doesn't know who's in it with him? Who?
Well, that's what he said. He didn't know who was there. You know he's lying. You know, what do you mean he don't know who they are? He knows who they are. All he says is 8 people gagged around him, took a picture. He was going to take a picture with somebody's niece. He's lying.
Gentlemen and ladies of the commission, an aye vote on this vote would give Frank Sinatra an unlimited license in the state of Nevada. Please call the roll.
Mr. Walsh?
Aye.
Ms. Stelter?
Aye.
Mr. Ings?
Aye.
Mr. Dodge?
No.
Mr. Reed?
Aye. This commission will stand in recess for 10 minutes.
So Frank Sinatra got his casino license. But the Nevada gaming authorities had called no witnesses to challenge his application.
You think that hearing in Las Vegas was a sham, do you?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I'm probably foolish for saying so, but I was supposed to appear before them. Their investigators came out to talk to me, and we absolutely refused because there wasn't any question that he was going to get his license.
He likes made guys. He likes to be around them. He likes to have pictures taken with him. You know, Giacana, Lucky Luciano, Fachetti's, you know. Look at all the publicity. He's got Gambino, myself. He thrives on this stuff. I'm telling you, he thrives on it. Of course, he ain't going to tell that to the president. You know, I don't know how he covers that up.
Time and again, it's been proved that Las Vegas casinos have been controlled by organized crime figures. They've owned blocks of shares in the names of respectable frontmen. They've used casino employees to skim or steal huge sums from the counting rooms. Mobsters have also taken a percentage of casino profits known as points.
And they take points of ownership in that casino. In other words, 5 points, 3 points, maybe 1 point's worth $10 million, or 1 point's worth $1 million.
This is not visible, though. You look at the shareholdings.
No, it's not visible at all. This is off the top. In other words, these points maybe would be in a ghost name, some square, maybe a grave. But that money, right, but that money would be taken off the top. And those are the money that carry the bagmen that would carry the money to these cities. And, of course, Chicago would get their money and whack it up to the families. The north side, the near north side, the west side, Melrose Park, and all those different areas would get their share. And that's how the money got dispersed.
From this building in Chicago, the mafia families launched their biggest onslaught on Las Vegas. They did it through the Central States Pension Fund of America's largest union, the Teamsters. The fund was set up to look after the pensions of America's truck drivers, and in a few years it was worth billions of dollars. The mafia diverted huge loans from the fund to some casino owners when no one else would lend them money. The fund became the mafia's private bank. Alan Dorfman, whose father was a Capone gunman, was in charge of the fund's investments in Las Vegas. He handed out loans when the crime families demanded them. In 1982, Dorfman was convicted of attempting to defraud the Teamsters pension fund. The Mafia killed him to stop him talking about the money he lent them. The pension fund's early Las Vegas loans went to the Desert Inn and Stardust casinos, with which Mo Dalitz was involved. Another loan went to the Fremont Casino. In all, the truck drivers of America lent hundreds of millions of dollars to Nevada's casino owners. Not that anyone consulted the truckers. In 1974, the fund made the loan which shows most clearly how the Mafia uses frontmen in Las Vegas. Alan Glick, an unknown 32-year-old lawyer, got a loan of $90 million. In return for the money, Glick signed a secret deal with the Mafia, making them hidden partners in the casinos he was buying, the Stardust and the Fremont. In 2 years, organized crime stole at least $7 million from Alan Glick's casinos.
What do you believe Alan Glick's role is then?
Well, I think he was just a front man, you know, in my personal opinion, you know, and being used. He was a bookkeeper. He comes up from bookkeeper to attorney to major hotel millionaire. How the hell's that happen if he's not being manipulated and used?
Alan Glick is an amazing individual. For his entire period of time that he's been involved in Las Vegas, he appears to have walked a fine line between organized crime and the government. Organized crime has not killed him, and the government has not put him in jail. I think he went to the Teamsters Central States Pension Fund because he had made a commitment to purchase the corporation without financial backing, therefore had to cut a deal. And I think part of that deal was organized crime placement of officials within his corporation who could then do what they wished in terms of skim proceeds.
The secret deal that Alan Glick made with Mafia bosses was later discovered by the FBI. Those bosses now face trial for stealing from his casinos. Glick himself hasn't been charged. In recent years, mobsters from most of America's Mafia families have been jailed for stealing from Las Vegas casinos. But even when casinos are proved to have connections with organized crime, the Nevada Gaming Board doesn't punish the operators effectively. John Donahue worked for the board as an investigator until he left in disgust.
For many, many years now, the Stardust and the Fremont and some other casinos have repeatedly been shown to have to be controlled really by Chicago, by the Chicago outfit.
There has been proof of it. It has been clearly established. There have been people convicted, and there hasn't been one 24-hour period that they've been shut down by the regulatory agency. What does that tell you?
That's what I was coming to. I mean, what does it tell you?
That the regulatory agency is not working properly. I consider it a sham at this point in time. You know, a farce.
There were celebrations in Atlantic City when New Jersey Governor Brendan Byrne signed the law allowing casino gambling and told organized crime to keep the hell out. Brave words, for New Jersey was already home territory to 7 crime families and hundreds of mafiosi. The Golden Nugget Casino. The customers are meant to feel they're back in the gold rush, but there never was a gold rush like this one. Atlantic City's 9 casinos already take more money than all the casinos in Las Vegas, and New Jersey wants to make sure that none of it goes to the Mafia. In Atlantic City, you're always being watched. In every casino, there's a room where security staff can see what's going on at the tables, the slot machines, and even out on the boardwalk. The cameras spy on gamblers and casino employees alike. They're operated by experts who can spot card cheats and any croupiers who are in league with them. They can also spot any theft from the cage or counting room, where millions of dollars can be handled in one day. Inside the cage is a New Jersey inspector who can check the takings in the cash boxes at any time. In Las Vegas, the cage is where organized crime has stolen most of its money. New Jersey believes that can't happen here. New Jersey investigates each company that wants to operate a casino in Atlantic City and roots out anyone with organized crime connections. As a result, the mafia hasn't found it easy to take over the casino's Las Vegas style by using frontmen. Instead, it's getting into Atlantic City by the back door, through the trade unions. Their members are vital to the casinos: the loaders and garbage men, the valets and laundrymen, roommaids, porters, bellboys, waitresses, cooks and restaurant staff. If they all went on strike, the casinos would have to close. In Atlantic City, most casino workers belong to Local 54 of the Hotel Workers Union. Even before the first casino was built, this union had been infiltrated by the Philadelphia crime family, led by Angelo Bruno.
It was my opinion that if I were Angelo Bruno, that I would not be concerned about the ownership of a casino, particularly when I knew the complex investigations that would be conducted involving those casinos. All the financial aspects would be fully explored. Organized crime does not like that kind of scrutiny. Organized crime can make all the money that they need to make if they can control certain peripheral activities. If I was an Angelo Bruno, and how could I get in the back door, I would control the labor union that's going to organize those casino employees, and they have done that.
New Jersey has tried to ban Local 54 of the Hotel Workers Union from the casinos, but the federal courts have backed the union. Several of the union's top officials have been controlled by Nicky Scarfo, the man who was sent to Atlantic City to look after the interests of the Philadelphia Mafia. Scarfo moved into a house in Atlantic City and happily set to work, taking over the casino union. Nicky Scarfo and the Mafia's control of Local 54 were the subject of a special Senate hearing on organized crime. Scarfo, by now boss of the Philadelphia crime family, said nothing in traditional Mafia style.
Mr. Scarfo, where do you currently reside?
26 North Georgia Avenue, Atlantic City, New Jersey.
Have you ever been convicted of a crime?
I invoke my right under the Fifth Amendment of the United States Constitution and decline to answer the question.
What do you do for a living?
I invoke my right under the Fifth Amendment of the United States Constitution and decline to answer the question.
Do you know Frank Gerace, the president of Local 54 of the Hotel and Restaurant Employee Union?
Same answer, sir.
What if you might tell us about the trial that you underwent in 1980? Just tell us what you were charged with.
I was charged with murder on the strength of Joe Salerno's testimony, and I was also found not guilty.
I understand that. You were acquitted.
Yes,
who else was tried with you? Could you tell us that, please? Who were your fellow defendants?
Lawrence Molino and Philip Leonetti, which were also acquitted.
And the name of the deceased again? The man who was killed by someone?
Vincent Falcone.
Say again, please.
Vincent Falcone.
Could you spell that last name, please, just for me?
Falcone.
And was he a friend of yours?
I invoke my right under the Fifth Amendment and decline to answer the question.
New Jersey has tried hard to keep the Mafia out of Atlantic City, to stop it becoming another Las Vegas. but the mafia is in there. After all, gambling is the birthright of gangsters.
I've talked to people that are in organized crime, that have been cooperative with the law enforcement agencies I worked, who told me before the first hotel opened that they already had things like the napkins, the vending machines, the creams, and everything else. And even the people in New Jersey, the real police officers involved down there, will acknowledge to other police officers that, hey, they're here already. They've got a hold of this and that, and, you know, they think they're keeping them out of the gaming facility room itself. What the hell's the difference if you can't run the union, if you can't pick up the garbage, if you can't put the milk on the table, and you can't put a napkin in front of somebody when they order a meal in there? They own you already.